Coogs house. We told you the Houston Cougars would look different this fall, but were you ready to see some true freshmen starting?
You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. Whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Appreciate you for listening each and every day. You're at Locked On Cougs. I'm enjoying the conversation, but you don't know what to say. Tell us in the comments down below, and every dayers will know that I'm a fan of Neemphis, but Neemphis is now going to have a spot in the stadium. So, in honor of Neemphis, what is your fajitas order? Your chicken, beef, mixed combo, something else? Tell us in the comments down below. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. More on that fun later, because Houston may be about to start a freshman on defense in against Stephen F. Austin this Thursday in their opener. I want to talk about that in the first segment and what that looks like based on the starting lineup that was released this Monday. I want to talk some about the other offense side of the ball where there feels like there might be just too many dudes and too many mouths to feed for the time being, and why I think that's not actually the bigger problem. Last but not least, we will spend a segment at the end talking about other notable things from the depth chart. But first, I think a lot of people saw the name pop out on the screen. I think the first guy I saw tweeted out was Duarte, so I'm going to give him credit. If it was somebody else that was first, kudos. Duarte tweeted out a picture of the two deep, and they put out right before Fritz's press conference on Monday. Press conference pretty mundane, pretty normal, but the two deep caught a lot of people's eyes for a lot of reasons. One thing that stuck out was freshman Chance Bryant was listed as the starting Sam. Now the starting Sam is a linebacker hybrid type position. And Chance Bryant's a very talented football player, high-end football player from Fulshire High School. He actually played a lot of positions there. He's best at the defense side of the ball, and I want to give him his credit there, but he actually played some offense as well. The kind of guy that did that because his team needed it. Came in and played some offense and really like a big mauler type of run you over guy in the front seven on defense when he played over there. Per Fritz in the press conference, he's up to about 260 pounds these days, and he hits 21 miles an hour at his GPS in the offseason, which is really impressive, to say the least. And he is the lone true freshman to be listed as a starter. And it's not very common, even in the new current era of college football, to have a starter out the gate week one, especially not someone that's like the 5-star you're starting on basically so you can hold on to him and not lose him to transfer kind of thing. Like, this is an interesting move. It also is worth pointing out that Alvin Baselli is a redshirt freshman, also listed as a starter on offense. He's high school class 2022, has had some red shirts, and so that feels a little bit different. Obviously, Chance getting to play here is a cool deal. And it's frankly his first real experience off the line of scrimmage as a linebacker. All that pass dropping and coverage stuff is going to take a lot of reps. He's commented before in interviews I've seen online about vets helping him out, and Corey Platt and Brandon Mack and those guys getting in his ear and talking him through things and stuff like that. That's all going to take time. The pass rush, the run defense, all that kind of stuff from that hybrid position is going to be very natural. So I watched some of his high school stuff, and I watched some of what Armstrong was doing at Florida last year to kind of try and see where the marriage there was. And Armstrong's going to have anywhere between 4 and 6 guys on line of scrimmage in the box on any given play. He's a very savvy defensive coordinator, very heady and brainy, and will use those kind of deceptive things to throw off the offense. They might line up 6 and send 4. They might line up 4 and send 6. It doesn't really seem to be like there's any consistency there. The goal being, of course, throw off the defense, the offense, I should say. The goal is to be not throw off the defense, but to throw off the offense. I say that to say that this hybrid position is something Chance will do very well. I don't mean to pop bubbles, though. I do think that he likely still plays a fairly rotational role. He is listed as the only Sam and the starting Sam, but it doesn't take but a quick second glance to realize that there are 12 starting positions on the defense. The more common hybrid position has been called the Jack, and the Jack is Latrevion McCutcheon. And for what it's worth, like Latrevion feels like built in a lab for that position. Um, He's very, very twitchy for a 245, 250-pound guy. Can't find an actual wingspan, but he's got relatively long arms. At least he plays with it. He keeps offensive linemen at a pretty good distance off of his body and frame with that long wingspan. Um, Great pass rusher. When you ask guys, he's got the fastest get off in the room as far as getting off on the line of scrimmage at the snap of the ball. He's also, again, wiggly and twitchy enough to get out in coverage. Neither one of these positions is going to be like covering backside of Tampa 2 or something like that. They're going to most likely be covering a tight end sized body and man, or a like a hook curl flat kind of area in zone. And for what it's worth, Armstrong does go back and forth, and he'll do one on one side of the field and one on one on the other. And like he does run complex coverages, but I feel like Sam is like a position that Chance Bryant has on foot, like a foot on its throat, has a stronghold on, because when he comes in the game to play that hybrid spot, they're going to treat it differently. Now, I will say, I think very it's very easy to say that he will be on the field a lot as a freshman. They wouldn't have kind of given him his own position in this if they weren't planning on that. But Latrevion McCutcheon, Ole Miss transfer Brandon Mack, those would be the guys I think you'll see at that more traditional hybrid. Traditional hybrid doesn't at the hybrid position as Armstrong traditionally has played it. There you go. That's what I think that they'll be at there. That having 12 guys implies that they may switch those positions in and out. I could see a world, if I'm looking at some of the stuff Florida was doing in on the goal line, or in like fourth and third and super short kind of scenarios, where you take a coverage guy out and put both the Sam and the Jack out there. It looked like on the field, on the video you're watching, that they were a combination of two different linebacker size, defensive end size guys, that hybrid guys in the field, which implies to me that they're taking off the backside safety or something to kind of sell out on the run game. That would make a lot of sense to me. That's where I see this, and I don't mean to burst bubbles with people getting excited about freshmen starting. I kind of did myself. I just feel like that's true. Like Sam is the position that is going to be played a lot less than the other 11 on there, especially when you've got a guy like Latrevion, who we knew coming into the season would be a starter, and we knew coming into the season was going to be he is going to be a difference maker. And this position again feels relatively built for him. But that's not to say Chance Bryant won't come in and play a lot. And when he comes in and plays, it will feel, look, and apparently be called a lot differently with him on the field, right? And so that's going to be an interesting thing to watch. Now, another thing to watch is on the offense side of the ball, where it feels like there's a lot of mouths to feed. And I don't think that's actually all that big of a problem. Before we get too far, today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at FanDuel, because August 26th, check your watch, is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling the MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. If you're feeling really good about CJ Stroud, FanDuel Futures Day. If you're feeling really good about the Texans in the AFC South because Daniel Jones is going to be a Colt, NFL FanDuel Futures Day, right over the NFL side of things. Go check all that out. If you got a hunch on who's going to win the Super Bowl, FanDuel Futures Day. Also, tell me, because I could use some FanDuel good luck in my life. Visit FanDuel.app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Park Rangers, Locked On Cougs here. And Well, the sheet came out with the two deep on it. A lot of people were picking up different things. One thing that is very clear on this two deep depth chart is Houston is very deep at the skill positions. They listed the starters as Devin Williams, Boogie Johnson, and then Amari Thomas or Makai Muse at wide receivers. I love the ors and depth charts. Um, but that's kind of, I think, will be dependent on where they get the ball on the field, start the game or whatever, right, as far as who gets the actual start. But Harvey Broussard and Kobe Young were both listed as second string. Listen, this week, obviously, with Stephen F. Austin, you're playing an FCS opponent. You can anticipate them all getting a catch. I would venture to say that they play 12 games, assuming they're all healthy. Uh, I would venture to say all six of those guys, Devin Williams, Boogie Johnson, Amari Thomas, Makai Muse, Harvey Broussard, Kobe Young, all six of those guys record a catch in like 11 of 12 games. Like, I feel very confident in that. Those guys are all going to see the field a lot, where we haven't seen that kind of rotation at the receiver position really in a couple years. Both in Dana's last year and in Fritz's first year, they didn't feel like jumping into that quite as much. Now, down the stretch of the season last year, you did a little bit more, but at the start of the year, you certainly didn't. Dana's last year, you certainly didn't. You kind of had the big three that last year with Dana, right? And it was Golden, it was I guess it was also Boogie, and then it was Manjack, and those were the only three guys that ever saw the field. It felt like, right? I don't think that's going to be the problem with this year's team. The problem is really going to be more about like how do you keep them all happy with their production. But the great thing about these guys, and I don't want to act like I know all six personally, but we've spoken to Makai Muse on the show before, spoken to Boogie Johnson on the show before, spoken to Kobe Young on the show before. They all put winning above everything. And so if things are going smoothly, I'm sure that they could all be very easily sold. And hey, you get 4 catches, not 7, or hey, you get 3 catches, not 5. And like things are moving okay, they're all going to be fine, right? Like I think that they get that piece of it. They all got that kind of head on their shoulders. And I think that speaks, frankly, to the kind of culture Fritz is building here. Devin Williams being listed as a starter only surprised me in I think you hear a lot about Kobe Young because Kobe Young has this like crazy, twitchy, wiggliness to him that I think has really wowed a lot of people. I heard someone say you couldn't catch him in a phone booth, right? Like energy in a bottle. Like I think that what interests me about Devin Williams is that's rewarding a guy for the production and the stuff he had down the stretch last year because he did have a good end of the season last year. And so that's, I think, where that comes in. Leadership, a little bit older guy, too. Amari Thomas does not have the leadership kind of stuff. And Amari Thomas is a dynamic pass catcher, tremendous couple seasons at South Florida before coming to Houston. Makai Muse, though, is a Georgia transfer that is frankly like the epitome of everything captain you'd ever want. And so they're duking it out for that third starting receiver spot technically, but they're both going to see the field, right? And so I think that's the beauty of this thing. When you have an offense that can hum a little bit and a quarterback that can sling it around in Connor Wegman, I think he'll be all right. Now, as far as the tight end room goes, other pass catchers, I think it's interesting that you brought back Jaden York, who you listed as your starter last year. And frankly, I don't think he did horribly last year. He became more of the blocking tight end out of the couple, but he was listed as your starter. And he doesn't make the two deep this year, not for any fault of his own. You just brought in that much talent in Tanner Kozel and Luke McGarry. I keep wanting to say McGarry, Luke McGarry, as a couple transfers there. And really, that I think speaks to how much they're going to utilize those guys. Kozel is a okay blocker. He is a pass catching machine. 94 catches a year ago at tight end. Let's here, 6'9" on this, and that's 6'9", as Fred said in the commentary in the press conference. That is your traditional 6'9", no shoes, like true measurement, 6'9". They list him as well at 240 pounds. For what it's worth, other people are throwing out 250, but that's how they're going to give him 240. Luke McGarry's 6'4", the short guy in the bunch is 6'4", 250 pounds. Big, big targets in those short check down, release valve, save me kind of areas for the quarterback. Especially like the goal is to keep Connor Wegman upright. If he can get the ball out of his hands early, it's harder to hit him. When you have a big target like Cozell, that's how you get the ball out of his hands early. Hey, 5-yard hits, jump ball. 5-yard hits, jump ball. What's uh, the Witten Dallas Cowboy, Jason Witten button hook, right? Those kind of things. That's what you're looking at there. More of the too many dudes kind of thing. The running back room apparently doesn't have a starter. It's listed as Rashawn Sanford or Dean Connors or Jamarian Burnett. It's not in number order, not in alphabetical order, not in seniority order. So I think that means that technically Rashawn has the starting nod, but that's when you throw Stacey Snead into as the dynamic pass catcher out of the backfield, I think you're really looking at a room full of guys that it's going to be by committee. I think it's going to be by committee all year, if I'm being honest. And it does not sound like Fritz wants that. He said in the commentary that he hopes someone becomes kind of a bell cow or a workhorse in the group. If I were to put my money on one of those guys, it comes down to Sanford and Connors. I think Sanford feels more like a running back to me. He's got the wiggle, and frankly, he makes guys miss in small areas inside the tackles. Dean Connors certainly makes guys miss in wide open spaces, right? Like one-on-one in that out wide, he makes guys miss a lot more. So maybe it will kind of depend on how the offensive line is blocking as to what they do more, to which one guy gets kind of more of the nod. But I still feel pretty strongly about Rashawn. As not a knock to anyone. I mean, all four backs are really, really good backs. All four backs should, and in my opinion, will play. But I do think that if you're looking for the workhorsey type back, like Fritz mentioned he wants, then you're probably going to settle to Sanford, maybe Connors at some point getting a little bit more of the carries than anybody else. But that's TBD. Obviously, the offensive line was another story on the offensive side of the ball. 4 new starters. The starting lineup they listed here: left tackle Alan Ibaselli, the transfer in from Baylor; left guard Jason Brooks, the transfer in from Oklahoma State; center Pancake Demetrius Hunter, one of the highest recruits ever committed to University of Houston back in 2022. He's back as a starter. He started 12 games last season. Matthew Wyckoff, transferring from Cal, but also spent time at A&M with Connor Wegman. He's coming in at right guard, and Dalton Merriman, the transfer from Texas Tech, at right tackle. That's 4 power conference experienced guys coming in as new offensive linemen. Now, Merriman switches from left tackle to right tackle, and Jason Brooks, back when we talked to Cody Stovall, he acted like it was political, but Jason Brooks started for a lot of games in the 2023 season, did not get a lot of starts 2024 season at Oklahoma State. Remember the 2023 season, they went to the Big 12 championship game, but I digress. Ibaselli has been in and out of lineups, has some red shirts, and again, he's a high school 2022 kid that is listed as a redshirt freshman, right? Like, there's a lot of that in this as well. I don't mean to say that everyone's a perfect 5-star product ready to go to the NFL, but they are all guys that have real deal experience. If you trust your development system they got Iman Yagavi, I feel like you got to feel pretty good about that. I also should point out that David Dukwe, who for my money had the I had to be alerted to this, frankly. I didn't know that I would have given him this kind of nod until someone's like, go back and watch. And Dukwe had a really strong season individually last year. And I would have thought he'd figure into this somehow. I think it speaks to the work of other guys that he's not. I don't think it's a knock on Dukwe at all. But David just got jumped a little bit here. Now, they'll probably all play Thursday, and we've heard Fritz say before they're going to use these first couple games as like trying to figure out, like in live, like think about it like NFL preseason kind of who's going to fit in where. But that is interesting. I also think that he's listed as a backup center right now. I don't know what position he'll play because he played 4 of the 5 spots in his time at New Mexico, but Mackenzie Agnello is going to play a lot this season. I don't know which spot it will be. Again, he's listed as backup center with the 6'4", kind of bulldog mentality of an offensive lineman, 315 pounds. Um, he's too talented to sit all season. I bet he plays somewhere. They might just be waiting to see who breaks a shoelace first or something. But he's a ball player, and he's a hog molly like mean hog molly like a mean boar kind of hog molly, not like I don't know, not like he's built rotund like Pumbaa, but he is certainly the warthog that Pumbaa is not depicted to be in that movie. I didn't know I was going to be referencing Lion King today, but you know, dad of a toddler, that's the way things go sometimes. I do want to talk about other notable things that are not on the offense. Kind of circle back the defense for some of that in a second. So please stick with us. But before we get too far, today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at Rugiet, because guys, listen, you've probably heard of Viagra, Cialis, those pills at the gas station. Look, if you want to get something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready, because Rugiet Ready is the next gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast. On average, in 15 minutes, can last up to 36 hours. The effects can last for 36 hours, so you can stay confident in control when the moment is right. It is board certified, completely online. Doctor ships it in discreet packaging to your door. Head to rugia.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege to get 15% off today. That's Rugiet, RUGIET.com/lockedoncollege, and use promo code lockedoncollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compound drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Coogs here. And as we're talking through the first depth chart of the year, and I stress the reason this one sticks out to me is more important than, like, I don't think we'll do this every week or every game week unless there's other sizable changes. But this is the first, like, okay, they're coming out and telling us what's going to happen. Yes, in Big 12 games this year, we will get injury reports a couple days out and then again right before the game and so on. But this is kind of an insight as to who's looking like they're going to take a starting spot or who's got a starting spot right now as we head into things. And after all the conversation, I do think it's worth pointing out that Austin Carlisle, backup quarterback, freshman quarterback, a really big prospect at quarterback when he came in, is not listed anywhere. There was talk about him being a special teams guy. I do think in my heart of hearts that that's really because this is a true two deep. And instead of having Zeon Chris or Austin Carlisle, they just listed Zeon Chris as the second, because Austin Carlisle is the third right now as far as quarterbacks go in the game. And he's not listed on the punt returning or kick returning. They do list Mekhi Muse as doing both of those. They have Jaquise Martin as the other kick returner and DJ Butler as the other punt returner. You know, three guys play four spots. Could you see Austin Carlisle out there with the kind of top tier speed potentially? We also heard like Fritz make jokes about him catching the ball, and those jokes may be more than just jokes. We'll see. I I I do think so. Zeon Chris is a true dual threat quarterback. If he did not, if he was not the kind of runner he is, I think you'd have to have a package for Carlisle to get on the field. I wonder if they're thinking, can we preserve a red shirt for Austin Carlisle and like use that like go gadget kind of package with a running quarterback with Zeon? We'll see. But him being not on this just means he's not a second string. I don't think that he hasn't. I don't think that says anything else besides that. What was interesting to me, and a position I can see going back and forth every week, is Mark Stampley being just ahead of Rook Brown at one of their flex position on the defensive backfield. Mark Stampley transferred Georgia Southern, but big time transfer. Rook Brown transfer from Wyoming, and that interesting back and forth there again. I think they'll both play. Stampley's list as a starter now, but they're both really high-end talents from smaller schools that were frankly pretty coveted by a lot of people coming out of those smaller schools. And they're playing the same position, that hybrid. They're calling it the star position, but it's a hybrid defensive back kind of position. Could see that flip every week. They're both very talented guys. Rook Brown in Wyoming was on the team that I forget if they beat or should have beat Tech, whatever year that was, but big time football player. Mark Stampley is a really, really talented athlete himself. And so we'll see there. Interesting. Okay, we opened the show talking about freshmen playing. And so we'll close the show talking about freshmen playing. Eddie Walls is listed as the starting field side defensive lineman. Eddie Walls is 6'4", 250, and I thoroughly enjoy his highlight tape. I want to start by saying that Eddie Walls is really good. He does feel specialist-like to me as far as like being a pass rusher. And look, sacks get you paid. I totally get it. Go do your thing. What was interesting to me is not that he's listed as the starter, as number 90 field side defensive lineman, but his backup is true freshman Rashad Sterling. Now, Sterling is 6'3", 250. He's big, strong, fast, four-star true freshman out of Lutcher, Louisiana. And Eddie Walls is a senior transfer from FIU. I should say that too. Sterling is a much more, well, he's a younger guy and a more undeveloped guy. He's also a really like a true, well-rounded defensive end, right? And Eddie Walls feels like the specialist. And so what I could see here happening is the freshman that may actually play a lot more, the true freshman that plays a lot more on this whole depth chart, is not the Carlisle name we hear about a lot because he's a quarterback, or Chance Bryant's listed as a starter because he plays his own position kind of out here, or whatever. The freshman that could play a lot might actually be Rashad Sterling, because even though he doesn't get called the quote starter, he's a well-rounded football player playing behind a guy that's kind of got. Again, I don't mean to say that Eddie Walls can't do the other stuff, but he's a lot better at this one thing, right? And so do you see him getting more reps there? Will be interesting to follow on Thursday. Other news and notes I will point out. Another Duarte thing I saw him put out there was that they're putting out informationals on the football team for media. 28 guys in the roster were signed to the 2024 class. 45 guys in the roster were signed to the 2025 class. That makes up, if my math is correct here, 73 guys that have come into the roster, that are on the present roster since the coaching swap, right? That tells you a lot about the shift in culture of this program. See it that bluntly. Now, they don't say the coaching swap happened after the class 2023, but it's certainly something that anyone paying attention understands, right? And for what it's worth, of the holdovers, it looks like 5 or 6 of them will start. Jalen Garner is listed as the starting will linebacker spot. Demetrius Pancake Hunter is the center. We mentioned Boogie. Latrell McCutcheon technically transferred in the Dana Holgerson era, but wasn't allowed to play that year under the old transfer rules back then. His brother Latrevion, obviously a starter. And then Rashawn is kind of a starter with this backfield of everyone that no one's listed as the official starter. That speaks to me very highly of the job that Fritz and company, right? Willie and Wes and the whole staff have done in putting together a culture and a roster that fits that culture, right? We talk about the rebuild in terms of you got a bus. You got to get the guys off the bus that don't need to be there. You got to get the guys on the bus that do need to be there. You got to get the bus in drive, and then you can start going once they're on the right seats, right? They got a lot of guys off the bus. They've now got a lot of guys on the bus. They get them in the right seats, this thing starts moving forward, right? And I think it's that simple. And I think it happens this Thursday. Now, obviously, FCS opponents, you hope those kind of things go your way, because otherwise it's a little embarrassing. You're on TV the next day. But we'll be breaking it down more throughout the week. We'll also be live after the game. So make sure you hit subscribe and the bell so you know that we are live. Locked on Coogs, primarily locked on. Oh, trivia questions. Almost forgot trivia questions. Notes, Parker, notes. Last thing we asked was, you last played an FCS school in 2019. Who's the leading scorer in that game? Was the kicker, Dalton Weatherspoon, who had 13 points, which, again, 37 points against Prairie View was not the best outing they've ever had, but it's what 2019 was. Today's trivia question, which will be answered next time on Locked On Cougs, is how many players and coaches from the University of Houston, assuming some of these names on this depth chart are going to have a big-time career, Hall of Fame type of career, how many Houston Cougars are in the College Football Hall of Fame? College Football Hall of Fame. Tell us comments down below. We'll be answering it next time. Locked On Cougs. Remember, Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Cougs.